Hello.
Hey there. Ugh, I literally just got back from Boston like a
Ah.
minute ago.
Oh,
I'm so glad I don't live there anymore.
mm,
Where did you live in Boston?
Everywhere.
Oh,
We were there for 12 years. We left in 97, but let's see, started out in the South End, then JP, then Brookline, then Brighton, then Medford, then Arlington, then Marlborough. And
boy.
then we left.
Enough
that's a
Yeah.
of
lot
it.
of places.
Yep.
Yeah. Traffic
I lived,
sucks.
I lived in Brookline and Roslindale,
We're in
but
Brookline.
oh gosh, the name of the street. Um, I mean, it was right by the main drag.
And landmarks will do.
On Beacon
Yeah,
Street.
yeah. You could just walk like 2 or 3 minutes, and watch the
Anything.
Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was in Somerville for 17 years.
Oh
We're in
wow.
Somerville.
Um, Porter Square,
Okay.
as it was coming up,
When were you there?
83 through 2007. That's
Yeah,
more than 17 years. Yeah.
I moved there in '84, and I remember Lucy got a job, and there was a it just it was Northeast Co-ops. They distributed to co-ops all around Northeast, and it was on Mass Ave and Cameron, and they hadn't built Davis Square yet, so
Right.
we were walking from Porter down Mass Ave, and it just
Yeah.
felt like the end of the world at that
Yep.
point.
Yep.
And having just been through Alewife, where they've built condos in every like nook and cranny, it's
Available.
incredible.
Yeah. Inches. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I could just rant and rave. I mean, I was like shocked. It took me an hour to get from downtown Boston to like Concord.
Everything's disorienting. I mean, the
Oh,
landmarks are all totally different. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You know, I knew I'd been there. Like I felt a great sense of accomplishment when I could get around the back roads of Somerville, when I knew the one-way streets and stuff.
Yep.
And my older kid was living in like Medford, Somerville for a bunch of years. And I was so disoriented because all the buildings are different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the street names are the same, but that's about it.
But what? Yeah. Right. It's, yeah. Yeah.
And housing's still expensive.
Oh
Like
my
they need to
gosh.
build more.
Yeah. Yeah. That photo of you is like a French cavalier.
You're so kind.
It is very fine. Mm.
Isaac, sorry to keep you waiting. I was complaining about traffic.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Well, why don't I call us to order at 5:03? Good to see everybody. Very glad to be home. Um, I forget who's taking minutes today. That
Yeah.
was a thank you, Gail. Appreciate it. Um, I think we have a shortish agenda, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because
So
I
they
have
got to
to
get
go.
you out of here so you can get to the select board.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's see if there's public comment, shall
There's
we?
no public.
No public. So moving on, we got a bunch of updates. Hey Nate, you're first up with community choice aggregation.
So I reached out to Colonial, and they're deeply apologetic for not. They did meet with their lawyer, um, but yeah, they're I think a little embarrassed, honestly, that they had us all hyped up, ready to go, and then sort of hit the pause button. But they promised to get something to us for the new year, like within the next week
Something
or two.
meaning a plan.
So determination. Um, let's see. So it is a determination. Well, honestly, it says something. Um, I'm just gonna call it like it is.
Okay.
Well, as they
Yeah.
say, that's better than nothing, right?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yeah.
Yeah. But whatever hits my inbox, I will forward to the committee
Okay.
right away, so we can all, see the something at the same time.
I forget,
But
is the holdup DPU?
um, I think it must stem from DPU, or at least be downstream of Colonial's um, interest in confirming the template for plans moving forward, and just by virtue of being uh, in the queue, as it were, as these changes are happening. Um, we're kind of on the bleeding edge of the new process, and I think that's ultimately the root of it. Is yes, not DPU, in the way that DPU has been an issue in the past around community choice aggregation, but more to the just needed bureaucratic um, uh, uh, sort of process being set, so that in the future things, the template and you know the approval process being time bound, all those good things that have come out of the recent CCA process revisions, that those will function properly. So,
Lots of meetings and approvals to be had to figure out the process.
in, indeed, and more than one lawyer, I'm sure. But that's
Cool.
Colonials, they're working with their lawyer and trying to.
Well, they got to get their
Make sure.
legal pennies under. Yeah, right.
Yes, all the I's need to be dotted and the T's crossed. So,
Cool. Well, thank you for being diligent.
yeah,
And,
sorry it hasn't been more substantive the past two updates, but that's the case. Yeah.
well,
If you don't have substance, you can't. It's
exactly.
not your fault.
Yeah. Besides, you've been very productive in the last 2 years, so you're
Yeah.
a couple fallow months is okay. So thank you, Nate, for staying on top of that. Isaac, what do you got for EV chargers?
From everybody that we wanted to contact, and I put together all the notes and sent them out to you. But just kind of like an overarching theme was, all positive all positive responses. Most of them hadn't done the research, right? Like they hadn't been actively looking for other things. It was just kind of this cold call, and they went with it, and it worked out. But there were some exceptions. So Rob Winunk, W-N-U-K, Winuk, Mount Greylock, Williamstown, Lanesboro. So I'll just read his response in terms of like, why have you decided to utilize the grant? I've been in the market for level 2, 3 charging for years. Every time National Grid offers come back, there are always $50,000 or $60,000 difference between what's paid by the program and the actual cost of installation. As a public school district, there's no way we can justify spending $60,000 to install EV charging. If ERC can get the cost down and then donate the difference to get them that at no cost to the district, it's a no-brainer. So, I mean, he's been out in the market and looking around for a while, and says it was a good experience. Also, let's see. So one thing I found out from Amy, let's see, where's she from? Amy from Worthington, Mass, was saying that, and I think this kind of came out before, but if ECR owns the spot, owns the charging stations, which I think is So I think that in the questions it was we asked about maintenance and upkeep, right? So they were saying, I think it was something to the order of, and I could look at my notes, but it was like $600 per station per charger, and there's two chargers per per unit. So if we had like that's a minimum annual charge of $1,200 a year for just one, but it would be on ECR if they owned it. But if they own it, there is there's signage that it's for EV parking only. And I don't know about enforcement on that. Like she didn't really get into it. And like she was also very willing to like join us in a future meeting to kind of have a conversation with us if we were interested in that. She offered that over and above like, anybody else. So um but in terms of enforcement of that, like I think logistically, with what we were thinking about with having it in like, one at the fire station, one at the, town hall, one at the police, like where the police station is. So like maybe in the back or something like that, and one at the town hall to support a transition to, um, you know, you know, electric vehicles in the municipality. Um, that wouldn't necessarily be an issue, right? Like one EV charging station only parking in behind the town hall. I would imagine this EV charging parking at the fire station would be in the back, so it wouldn't be like public facing. Same thing at the DPW. Like, I don't know, you maybe talk with Public Works to see if like they could spare like that, if that was in like, and that would again, like part of all of this is talking like we've discussed before, talking about like long-term capital planning, building improvements, all that kind of stuff. If we're taking stock of buildings and like if we're thinking about grants for solar for our municipal buildings, we want to be able to know that, all right, if these buildings are going to be in use, like specifically I see the most of the DPW would be, they've got a lot of apparatus and, would there be space in their lot for that? But everything, all the sites that we're looking at have electric meters from, National Grid. It's not like we're looking to put in a new box or something like that. They just need a thing to tie the application to. Um, but yeah, so like, all right, back to that, the sorry for that ramble, but the part so the EV parking, the charger would be EV parking only. So I don't know about the library. If we want to get one at the library, that might be an issue because I don't know what the parking situation is there, And then the other thing is, it seemed like some of them, some of the towns, or one or two of them, had mentioned that ECR had pushed for like more spots than they initially wanted to. Like some towns went and said we want one or two chargers, and they're like, well, I think if we're gonna own it, I'd like you to, we'd like you to have at least three or something like that. Kind of like a soft, like a pretty soft push. Um, and that's just something to be wary of because I would imagine it's kind of like what would make this profitable for them. I would imagine this structurally they would be gaining, um, they'd be taking all the tax credits and all that kind of stuff for the installation, and be taking, power, like money from the kilowatts per like the kilowatt hours charged on the devices. So, I mean, so that's another thing. Just like they might be a little forward in advocating for additional spots that we might not originally ask for. And again, it's about what is approved by the utility. That's the driver. And there had been we saw the email how it was EverSource has ended their program, but National Grid is still going. And then the recent email that we got a few days ago was saying that ECR can now support level 2 chargers instead of level 3, which would charge quicker. I think let's see if we go, let me just check the email real quick. And they said something you charge from 0 in
2 to 3 hours.
2 to 3 hours. Yeah. So.
That would make
Actually,
sense at the library, not so much at the police department or fire.
Yeah, I mean, well, not necessarily. I mean, you want to make sure that your apparatus is charged. I mean, you could, I mean, I know that like, at least with the fire department, like every other time we take an apparatus out, we let it get to like 3/4 full, before we fill up at the diesel or gas pump at the DPW. Because you never want to get caught with your pants down, right? Like
Right.
if you're getting called
Yeah.
on a mutual aid call where we have to go and go
Us.
far out.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you always want it to be charged, and you might not necessarily be the chance of having to wait 6-8 hours for a full charge. Yeah.
So you say that the utility is the driver of
From my
choice of
understanding, yeah.
choosing which level or choosing the
No,
now.
no, 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 no. So basically, what happens is working with ECR, they will help us make the application for the grant. That goes to National Grid, and they approve or deny, right? And basically, in my conversation with James McGrath, it was, he saw no limiting factor. There's no verbiage in the grant as had existed at the time that would preclude, like, limits the number of EV charging stations per town by any factor of, like population or whatever. So you could put an application for 8 or 12 or whatever. I mean, small towns have put in applications for 12, and it's seemingly like, why do you need so much? Um, but yeah, I don't know. But so it's just what the utility will grant. And like I responded before, the like part of the application is having like they examine the site, like the utility National Grid would examine the site, and if it already has like access to like 3-phase power, which most of our municipal buildings do, um, then that's a lower barrier, because that's less work that the utility has to do to facilitate this.
Isaac, who, so I get that ECR helps us with the application. Is that it's the town that applies, like it would be the
Correct.
select
Yeah,
board?
yeah. So James in his emails has been saying like essentially it would be through the select board. Like it couldn't be like we couldn't put the application through. It'd have to be through the town select board.
Okay, so since I'm going to the select board meeting, if I have a moment to sort of
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we're ready to make a recommendation or if we want to do a recommendation down the road, but it seems like the process would be we decide what we think. And if we want to make a recommendation, then going to the select board and saying, hey, um, we think you should apply for the town. And, just like we did with Nate, that you'd probably be the conduit to the select board. So like you'd be anointed to sort of act on behalf of the select board to work with James on the application thing. Would that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
But is ERC pressing saying, look out that Eversource is already gone and
They
National
did
Grid
say
might
that.
be going?
They did.
Quick, do it or else.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of part of the game. It's really weird because everybody said it seemed like a fast pushed sell kind of situation.
Mhm.
But again, like we could take it one of two ways, right? They're looking to bilk a town, or this is a great opportunity for the town.
Yeah.
They want to facilitate it, and they want to make sure that any town that has the wherewithal and the desire can get access to this while the money's still there.
Mhm.
It's probably somewhere in between, right? Because I mean, they're not Boy Scouts. They're probably, they're making money on the deal somehow, right? Um, but but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like, overwhelmingly with the data I've gathered from the different town reps, that it has been a positive experience. Now, again, all like most of these are in process. There hasn't like, it's kind of like those Amazon, the Amazon reviews for somebody who just just purchased the item and pulled it out of the box.
Yeah.
And then you might see like later on down the line, like 6 months later or a year later, like, oh, the thing broke or whatever. But at least now, like, I don't know. I, I don't know. It's seemingly from the information gathered from James, and we can go dig a little deeper and try to get some numbers on, you know, all the what ifs. And they're like I asked him like specifically the question of after the 5 years, because they donate the cost of like if they own it, they donate the cost of the software for 5 years. And I said, well, after 5 years, if you own the thing, do you still cover it? If not, like, how much would it cost? And he's like, well, yeah, I don't know. Like, who knows what anything's going to cost in 5 years? And I'm like, well, do you know what it costs now? And he's like, I'll have to look into it and blah, blah, blah. But
Oh, come
there were
on.
so many other questions that like, that was just kind of like one of many.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess like, what are like you're going to the, the meeting, if you have a moment to make message. I think the like what are the next steps in this, right? Are
Uh-huh.
there are there like very specific questions and data that we want to pin them down on, and
Yeah.
also like figure out a timeline, like because we would need, if we wanted to, we would need to make a recommendation. They would need to go to the to the town
Right.
and the select board. And, right now we have an interim person for who knows how long. And like we're in transition and there will be another transition. So, things don't run very smooth in town government when everybody's in place already.
Right
So,
there.
right. So like now, like there's even more chances for things to fall through the cracks when there's so many hands in the pot and balls in the air. So I think that like looking into like, or really like digging into like, what do we want our next steps to be? Uh, are there specific questions, numbers, data that we would want before we make a recommendation to the select board? If so, I can work with, the ECR to do that. The one concern is we may be pounding away at this and, gathering all this information and finally get it to the select board and they finally vote on it. And by the time it goes through, the money's gone. So it's like, I don't want to hurry things up, but I also want to be like, I'm happy to put the work in, and hopefully it works out in a timely fashion where these things can actually come to fruition.
Yeah.
Those
I,
may be
I,
the same constraints ERC is under. I mean, the same reasons.
100%.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question that would inform the timing,
Yeah.
which is the source of revenue for this. Like, I got the impression from somewhere that some of this is like state mass save kind of money, and then the other option is that it's like federal infrastructure money. And if it's federal infrastructure money, there's a good chance like the EV stuff will get clawed back, in which case
Yeah, right.
we
Yeah.
would
I mean,
we
Oh,
we'll know in a
January
month if it's
20th. Yeah, exactly.
oh, shit.
where does it come from? Are you clear on that?
I'm not clear on it. It just seems like a magical pot of money to me, but I can change, I can pin them down. All right. So let me get some questions like, all right,
Yeah,
so
let me check.
timeline for action, question mark. Where is the grant money coming from?
And the background, Isaac, with that is that like, if you do a mass save energy evaluation,
Yeah.
it's money that comes from the ratepayers that goes to the
Yeah.
utilities.
Right,
And
right.
so is
It's
this
the green
like,
energy addition to the tax
yeah,
infrastructure. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so is this like another version of that, in which case it's sort of in-house in Massachusetts, which I sort of don't think,
Yeah, no, I
but you
don't think
never
so
know.
either. I think that
But,
amount of
but
those dollars, yeah.
Mass save is for residents, right? Not municipal buildings.
Correct. Yeah, but he's making an analogy of
Analogy,
like
okay.
the source of
Is it
revenue,
done the
right?
same? Okay,
Is
yeah,
it a
Yeah.
reliable source of revenue, or is this something that could easily go away? Based
sure.
on the email and the communication about Eversource closing up shop on a similar program, my guess is that it could either be a combination of or just federal funding. So, but it's obvious that money can and most likely will run out, and the question of when is probably not something that they're going to be able to answer.
So a
Um,
follow-up, I guess a follow-up would be, if it's federal money after January 20th, were they offering coal power plants to towns?
coal power plants.
I have a
Electric
question.
vehicles.
I have a question that bears on the siting decisions because
Mhm.
that relates to the number of chargers that
Yeah.
you would want.
Yeah.
When I reached out to um the elementary school,
Uh-huh.
and there's interest there in
Uh-huh.
having a charger. We've talked about the need to put infrastructure in place before we push the town to adopt, or as part of pushing the town to adopt a zero emission vehicle policy, um, to make that an easier ask, if you will. Um, it seems like there's some outreach to do with, and we mentioned the library as well, and I agree that, like, maybe parking spaces are at too much of a premium there, but I'm not sure. Like, it seems like outreach to some other constituencies within the town, not just the select board, might it might shape our ask of this organization, like how we're thinking about the scale of our infrastructure needs. So,
Interesting.
um,
Yeah.
Open the door.
So, all right. So in terms of outreach, for interest, I can reach out to the school principal. I can reach out to Mary Ann, and I've had like a passing conversation with her, and she seemed not. And I think that's where the information came, because I think they probably, either someone from the Friends of the Library reached out to them directly, or they were approached by ECR about that, and that's where I found out before Amy from Worthington told me about the EV parking only for the spots.
yeah,
And I think that they're a little gun shy about that. So I will verify that for the library and the school. Um, Regarding like municipal sites, I mean, like, I guess, if appropriate, I could reach out to the police chief. I could talk to the fire chief, and I don't know who the head of the DPW is now, but
mm,
I'd be happy to like send some emails, and just have a conversation when I see people in passing, um, about that. Because I guess, where does the decision come? Would it be like, you know, if I would imagine, because of the fact that the police department is stationed at town hall, that that would be like, all right, well, if the police department isn't using it for, if they're never going to go to an EV cruiser, um that could still be used by municipal employees or people coming to the town hall. The fire
yeah,
department is another story. It's like, would the town elect to put it in without the blessing of the chief, right? Like, because the only vehicle I could imagine would be the chief's car, his emergency car, like where he would go to respond directly to Steen. Because, you're never going to see an electric fire truck in the town of Shutesbury. And even the rescue vehicle that we have, I mean, like regular, like diesel engine fire engines are north of, 800,000 to $1 million just for a regular, fossil fuel truck. God knows what a battery powered fire engine would cost. And then there's not many being made either, so it would be
Yeah.
extra expensive because it's not necessarily something common. Um, so I don't know, like, is it like, all right, well, talk to Lenny, you know, ECAC is looking into opportunities. There's possibilities for an EV charger. Now, that being EV parking only, if it were in the chief spot in the front, then it would kind of like force the issue of him having to get an EV charger, because I don't think he's going to park in the back, right? So
Just on that one though, I like, there's no ECR person who's going to enforce anything in Shutesbury.
Of
Like they'll never
course,
come.
right. No, I understand that. Like I understand that 100%. But like that's the question I had for Amy about enforcement, right? Is that something that is put on like would ECR put on the because I would imagine, right, because of they want it EV only because it's tied into a grid, right? And they can sense when like there's probably like a pressure plate to sense when a car is there or like when like versus when a car is charging because they want to make sure it's on a map, right? If you go up and you look on like they have like apps that tell you like where you can charge your car fast and they'll tell you what level of charger is
Wow.
available to you and what like where it is because if you need to charge up real quick and you're passing through Shutesbury and it says that there's a spot in front of the fire station, but that's really the chief's spot for his electric vehicle, um, you know, then they'll get complaints via the app that somebody's there and it's not charging. So I think that eventually that will come back, right? Because
It's
of the software.
yeah. It seems like that's really helpful to hear. It seems like rather than EV parking only, it's
Uh-huh.
really sort of who gets to use it. Like, is it municipal employee EV use versus residents or passers-by usage?
Right.
Like that seems like the because if we open it up to someone just coming through town
Yeah.
and the chief's there, or the chief needs to do it, but someone else is like, on their way to or from UMass and they're filling up, so to speak.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking of outreach in terms of like coming up with like scaling the ask, but then also like there is this constituency building element to it as well. Like if we go to the select board with the support of like multiple, you know, constituencies, then that's better than just us recommending it. Or
Yeah. And I think that that really like falls into I think that yeah, I think the question would be good to the police chief, to the fire chief and to the public works chief and see like, hey, would you even want this here, right? Like, but also ultimately as as a an entity or like a service for the town is like where does the decision ultimately lie, right? if the if the police chief or the fire chief or the DPW wants nothing to do with an EV, like like an electric vehicle in their fleet or as one of their apparatus,
the
would
select board.
the select board just say, sorry, no, we're doing that anyway?
Yeah. I mean, I think the fire chief or the police chief could come and say, we really don't want this, and it's a negotiation, but ultimately it's a select board decision because
Okay, yeah,
they run the town. Um,
yeah,
I,
that's what I
that,
thought.
yeah, the other thing I would just sort of point out, I think, Nate, in terms of the outreach and the scaling, assuming that all the funding doesn't go away on January 20th or thereafter, you know, I think if we assume this is going to continue to happen,
Hmm.
EV expansion and infrastructure expansion, et cetera, that there'll be another round of, there'll be different phases. So I think it's a
Hmm.
sort of like, how do we get our foot in the door and start,
Right.
essentially piloting it, have
Yeah.
a handful of chargers that we go from nothing to something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I was going to say that in part of our homework, to answer your question, Isaac, is to find out from the police chief, the fire chief, et cetera, if they want it. That's a
Yeah.
piece of information
Yeah, of
that
course it
we
would
would
be.
take to the select board, but we wouldn't need to make a determination based on that. I mean,
Yeah.
to Michael's point, the select board can still say, it's going to be there whether you like it or not, and have some rationale for that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because
But we should
ultimately,
know before we go to the select board what the sense is of
right, we're
out.
taking the temperature, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
well, the police department doesn't want this, but as part of the
And
town,
know why.
yeah,
Know their
exactly.
arguments.
What are their concerns, right? Yeah.
Nate,
real quick, yeah, I was just gonna say I can Isaac, I can write an intro note to Ann McGill Unless you like are already like on first name basis
No,
with her,
I
but
haven't even really spoken with her yet.
you still
So
have kids like in the
yeah,
school, right?
my son, and like we missed those popsicles with the principal because we were like out of town during the summer.
Yeah.
I've seen her in passing once. I went with the department to do a fire drill at the school, and I just saw her in passing, but um that was about it. We didn't have any, real interaction. So
Nate's got an in.
yeah. So in
Connected to
terms of
power.
so my action items are going to be to do some outreach to after introduction from Nate to the principal, talk to Mary Ann, talk to the chiefs. And then if anybody has a good contact for the DPW, because I really haven't spoken with anybody there.
Is David Grenier?
And
And it's
email is a good way to do
it's
that.
highway department, not
I'm
DPW.
sorry, yeah. Highway department.
Picky,
Joe, was
picky.
he there before? And when Steve left, he just filled in?
Yes, he got promoted.
Yeah.
He was an equipment
Yeah.
operator and he got promoted to
Okay.
chief.
Yeah. All right.
Superintendent, sorry.
Okay. So yeah, I will reach out to those, and then I can reach back out to ECR and say, we're in conversations with, we're interested. We've done the outreach to the other towns, and sounds like things are good. You know, if they have any action timeline or what the process is like, delineate the process,
Mhm.
should we decide, get an idea of where the money's coming from and what kind of urgency do we have? I mean, but are there other like, we need this information before we're able to go forward questions?
I think the only other part of the timeline is, there's it's not quite grandfathering, but like when, if we say yes and just say the money starts go like they close, when do we include it? Even if they just close down the opportunity, you know what I mean?
When do we what?
So like if we said yes today and then in a month the money goes away, like
Oh,
are we in queue anyway? So that's part of a timeline question, but it's sort of like
So based on, all right, so this is information from Eversource. So one of the towns I spoke with had an application out through Eversource because that was their town, and they were like crestfallen because they had started the process, but Eversource had already the before, like, as of the day that they got that email saying that the program was closed, they hadn't gone through it completely. And based on my conversation with that person, because that was, I think, one of the only phone conversations I had that I took notes on, um, they weren't, it seemed to me like it was, when the money's gone, and you have to be over the goal line by the time before the money's gone. But again, that's just my interpretation. I can ask, uh, if we say yes, if they discontinue the funding while we are in queue, do we
what happens?
still get a shot at the funding? Because yeah, whether they discontinue it because the money is gone or they discontinue it because they have enough applications that they won't be able to fulfill. But I think the thing is, you know, not all of them are guaranteed, right? Like, so if you think about it, if we have an application in, funding runs out, there are other people that would be in queue as well. And, are they shutting off funding with the anticipation that every single one of those would be accepted? And that's why they're stopping the application process, because, if anybody else applies, there's zero chance for them to get it, even if even if not everybody else gets it. It's a slippery slope. I don't think I would be more along the lines of saying, like, imagining that, when they close the funding, it's because they have awarded the last dollar that they have to install these, but I can try to get clarification on that if, ECR has that information. I would imagine they do based on, the two different utilities that they're working with. So we just
Yeah.
happen to be lucky to be a national or a national grid town.
So, anyone else have any questions before we move on to climate leaders? No. Isaac, this is great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for the info and thanks for taking the next steps. This is
Yeah.
not a quick process, but it's really, I think, really helpful. Even if
Well,
we get closed out, we'll have learned a lot. We'll be ready for the next time. So,
Agreed.
thank you.
you're welcome.
So, shifting on to the next set of thank yous. Nate submitted the application, so Nate, thank you. And you want to, I don't know if there's anything else to fill in, but you want to formally tell us
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think the update just is that we got the application out the door. And I also forwarded that complete package of PDFs to Chris Mason as well, who responded that if we need any help um, from our regional coordinator around like public education, we're going to have to do that forum, that public forum that actually checks the box on the stretch code, or any other sort of outreach things. They're a resource for us to draw on. So they were he was just encouraging in that respect. So
And I'm just going to correct you so we don't step into it again as we do last time. It's a public hearing, not a public forum, because it's a bylaw. So it's more formal.
yeah,
Sure.
yes, that's what I meant. I meant
Yeah.
That's what we heard you say, Nate.
Yeah. And, I'm thinking just on that probably at our January meeting. So I don't know if when town meeting date is set, but I'm assuming it's probably like late April, early May. Gail, do you know?
No.
Okay, so if we set a date for a hearing, at our January meeting, and we could do a hearing in March, and I think we could use the opportunity maybe to do free town meeting education around the other climate leader things you have to do, like the net zero vehicle, et cetera, like that, as well as the bylaw for the stretch code. We could sort of, you do the hearing, open the hearing, close the hearing, and then you can have a forum or vice versa. But if we want to look at dates at our January meeting and maybe figure for March, does that feel right to you guys?
Mhm.
Sounds like the right timing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I definitely appreciate you closing the loop on getting that in. It was a good team effort.
That was
Yeah, Gail,
Yeah.
thank you for starting the forum, by the way. That was the part that wasn't like a huge thing, but it's like someone has to thoughtfully do it. And you jumped into it. So thank you for that.
Hmm.
It was cool that the director wrote back. I was surprised.
Yes.
yeah. Personally, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so we'll see. I don't think we have any indication of when we're going to hear, right?
It has to be before the next
The
window
next round.
opens.
Yeah.
Right. You
Yeah,
have to
right.
learn, whether or not you need to apply again. So
Exactly. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
I think the email is ECAC at Shutesbury. So if they send some notification, we'll all see it.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Okay. So I think at this point we're gonna wait and see. I think I talked to the select board when Nate and I went to the meeting in November. So they have a sense that we're doing all these different things going into town meetings. So I think in that said, we're good. Anything else on this one? I think we're good for this.
Mhm.
So, and
Excuse me.
yeah,
when you said that you CC'd Chris Mason, did he say that he would help set up the forum or the hearing, or did he?
It was an offer of support for outreach, right? So,
Okay.
I mean, maybe I think we had him as a guest speaker for our the last time
Previous
around,
meeting,
I'll
or a
say
previous meeting.
previous meeting, and yeah, so
Yeah,
maybe something like that. Yeah,
he was one of the 4 attendees.
indeed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we can. I mean, we can do the hearing, but I think having, in terms of the substance in the background, whether it's for the forum informational part or in the context of the hearing, we should probably think about inviting him.
He needs to be there.
Yeah, it seems like it would be good. The more engagement, the better. So in terms of new business, I only had 2 things. And I don't know if anyone else does, but so Nate and last week I presented at this Wendell group about the new climate and clean energy bill. And then there's this guy, Paul Ben, who was talking about CCA, and he sort of, what we're applying for, he calls CCA 1.0, and then there's CCO 2.0 and 3.0, which is a bigger conversation. But as part of that conversation, there are people asking questions, and Richard Nordhorst, who used to live in Shutesbury, now lives in Leverett, reported that Leverett is working towards developing a microgrid for their municipal buildings. So, and I emailed him a little bit. He was saying that they can do it because they're not crossing a road, so like the fire department, the police department, the school, and the library are all,
On the same.
yeah, within a quarter of a mile of each other. So I think the key is if you don't cross the road, you don't have to deal with the utilities nixing your ability to cross the road. But
Chicken.
I asked him if he would come present to us about microgrids, and the thing that's interesting that he said was, they, like us, have a municipal light plan for broadband, but what they want to do is, if you have a municipal light plan for electricity, which is the original
Right.
reason to have a municipal light plan, then you can do a microgrid. So I just thought it'd be really interesting to gather the information since they're a neighbor, and at least get our juices going about, like, if we wanted to think along those lines, what that would be. Because
Who
clearly
is this? Who is this person, please?
it's Richard. I want to say it's Nordhorst. That's Narthhourst. So I'll send you his last name. But he used to live on Leverett Road. He was on the broadband committee way back, like in the early 2000s with me.
Okay.
And then he moved to Leverett. So I just thought it was really interesting because it's the first time I've heard of a municipality actually thinking about a microgrid, and having ownership and that kind of stuff. So, but does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll work with him, and if not January, we can loop in February. And then the other thing is that I haven't looked into it much, but I got an email, you guys might have too, that there's a climate leader webinar on January 16th, but I'm not sure what is involved in that webinar. Like if, yeah,
I want to go back to what you were saying about the light plant, because
okay.
I remember some conversation with Gail Huntress as to what is and is not allowed under our plant, which is for the internet and not for electricity. So I don't know if there's going to be some.
He said the same thing. He said when they got approved for their MLP, and I'm not sure what agency, did the vetting, if it was BPU, that municipalities had a promise that they would only do broadband.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
that's 10 years ago at this point or something coming on that. So they're just going forward and looking into it. So it'd be interesting to see, like, what is the promise? There's no
Okay.
contractual thing, but it is an issue.
But
It
they're starting from the same place we are now. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And if the Commonwealth's, looking to, electrify, why they would not let you do that is sort of,
Yeah.
it's a question. So, it might be very much a left hand and right hand, not really coordinating. But yeah, it's a good question.
Okay.
There's a lot I don't know, but it seems like it's the first. I mean, Leverett inspired us to work on municipal-owned broadband, so we might as well follow them in the same way
Yep.
with electrification. So,
So are you going to invite him to come?
yeah, I'll check and see, depending on what January date we come up with. I'll see, and if not, we can just shoot for a February date. It's not pressing, but it's interesting. So the other thing is this January 16th climate webinar. And I don't know if anyone has more substance about it. I looked at it, but there wasn't a lot of information about what they were talking about. And I'm not sure if I can go, but I also wanted to mention it. So, if we're going down this path and, some of us want to go and there's things to be learned. But I don't know. Nate, I'm
I
guessing you might have
signed up
looked
for the
at it.
webinar,
Yeah.
so
But you don't have
I'll
a
be
sense
there.
of what it is, right?
I
I
don't.
don't, yeah, I mean,
I don't
I
know.
couldn't get it either. It's like, I think I signed up for the webinar too, but, you know, it might be helpful, it might not be. Um, so, any other updates of things that we haven't done or things we should think about for future meetings? Besides the planning we talked about already? Cool, we can have a short meeting, and we're right on time, actually. So we got minutes to do.
Yep.
So.
I sent out
11:19.
those minutes.
Yeah, what was the
11:19.
date? You wanna make a motion?
11:19.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of 11:19:24 as presented.
Anyone have a second? Okay, Isaac seconds.
Okay,
Any discussion, comments, edits, etc.?
they were good.
I didn't get any line edits.
You didn't get any?
Edits, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, hearing that everyone thinks they're satisfactory, if not good. Why don't we just vote? And Isaac, how do you vote? Nate, how do you vote?
All right.
Dale,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay,
Unanimous.
unanimously approved.
Okay.
Nicely done.
Next meeting.
Yes, next meeting. So that would be January. And let's see, it looks like, I'm guessing the 14th or the 21st are the two dates we might do. I think 14th is better for me, but do you all have a preference?
Either is good for me.
Yeah, and I could do the
First one.
21st just at like 5:30. I'm just gonna be in Northampton till 4:30.
Yeah. Yeah, 14th works
14th?
for me.
I
24,
think,
21st.
5 o'clock,
yeah,
Okay, 14th at 5 o'clock.
2025.
Oh my.
It's gonna be an interesting year.
That's one word for it.
Yeah.
It is the word for it. Okay, cool. Well, this was good, substantive, and short.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. So just a heads up. So I got into a master's program at UMass in higher ed administration, and
Cool.
I'm taking a class next semester on Tuesdays that goes from 4 to 6:30. So as the meetings usually fall on a Tuesday, just a heads up that will be happening, and that basically I think will start in February and go through geez, what is it traditional this I
May?
can't even, yeah, February through May.
Okay, cool.
So
And Nate, what's the hockey scene?
yeah. I mean, I can definitely. Tuesdays are good, so
Okay,
I
but
can go later if that works for others.
so start later, you mean?
Yeah, start later.
Okay, Nate, if we started at 7, I mean, Isaac, would that be too much, or should we think about another day?
I kind of running out of other days in my week with, like, my wife's craft night and fire training and all that stuff. So yeah, I think I'll also see kind of, it's scheduled from 4 to 6:30. It's quite possible that I could start at 6:30 instead of 7, and I can just kind of roll in from class. Like I just find it, like a space in the building that I can go to. But that's going to be by ear because it also like, because it's 4 to 6:30 doesn't necessarily mean it's going to run till 6:30, sometimes 6 or whatever, or maybe it'll run till 6:30 or might go a little late. So it depends on how conservative we want to be in terms of a buffer and like, because also I'm at UMass and then if it's at 7, I can try to bust my ass to get back home to take the meeting at 7, or I just wait around and don't get home until like 8:30 or something like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just that kind of juggling, and I'm not gonna really have the knowledge. Um, we could tentatively say 6:30 via Zoom, and I'll just take it from class.
Okay. Well, why don't we assume that, and then if you get any other insight, and we don't have to do it next month anyway. It's
Of
just first
course,
thing in
yeah.
February.
But I just wanted you guys to know that's
Yeah.
coming down the pipe. Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
Of course.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
And then I remember, Michael, you were saying that there was an interested party a couple
Yeah,
of.
I thought he was going to come today,
Okay.
and yeah, he couldn't make the last one at the last minute, and he said, "Was that okay?" And I said, "Sure, come in December, no problem." And I didn't ever hear back. I was actually on the drive home tonight. I was thinking I hadn't heard from him.
Yeah.
So either the interest evaporated or I'm not sure. But yeah, he was a no-show because I've been looking at the participant list and there was no one in the waiting room. So, we can keep putting the word out
Okay.
and see how it goes. So anyway, anyone want to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, anyone second?
I'll second.
Hey, okay.
Any other discussion? This was delightful. Thank you. I'm down from my traffic angst, so it was nice to talk.
There you
So
go.
I'll take a vote. So Gail, how do you vote?
Aye.
Nate,
Right.
Isaac,
Aye.
and I am an I. Wonderful. We are adjourned. See you guys next month. Have good holidays and
Yeah.
good New Year and all that
Yep.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see you later.
All right. See ya. Happy
See
Good
ya.
holidays.
night.
Bye.